Welcome to the committee meeting for the Safety and Security meeting. To begin our order of business, Julie, has this meeting been properly posted?
Yes, it has.
Fantastic, thank you. Wait, I gotta find my script here, excuse me. So the second item on our agenda is the opportunity for citizens to speak. We are now at the section of our meeting where there is an opportunity for citizens to speak. Each individual will be limited to two to three minutes to speak in order for us to hear from the community, and then get on the agenda for our meeting. We'll signal the speaker at 2.5 minutes, correction, Mr. McCaffrey will do that, in order to allow wrap up of their comments. We expect all speakers to honor the time limit, refrain from using any inappropriate language in any manner, and be respectful in their comments. Speakers who do not meet these expectations may be prohibited from speaking in the future at the Security and Safety Committee meetings. We also expect the audience to be respectful of the speakers and of the Board of Education and refrain from responding with any verbal comments, cheering, applause, of other behavior that will distract from the meeting. In order to respect those speakers and meeting participants at this time, please silence your cell phones. And we have a list of folks that will be speaking to us. So first up, we will have Paul Reese, to be followed by Keith Best. Gentlemen? Good evening.
I've been coming here for years, and this is just beyond anything I've ever seen. It has nothing to do with safety. This has nothing to do. There are 300 million guns in this country. 22 of them, 22 million of which are about AR-15s. And that's not including the ones that guys have made in their basement. That's just ones that have been sold. Recent shootings, mass shootings, also involved other guns. And if you take away one, they'll go to the other. So where does this end? It has no end. It has no, you know, it is an absurd thing to think that the guns are the problem here. It's people and the way that society has walked away and denied and left God behind. We no longer honor God. We no longer recognize right or wrong. We do what was right in our own eyes. This notion that we teach our kids that God doesn't exist, that right and wrong is not here for us, it stems, let me start over here. If that was true, if God did not exist and right and wrong was just merely what we could make of it, then removing God from schools, removing God from society should flourish. It should get better. It should excel when we did this. It should have been retarded and repressed when there was a defined right and wrong, when God was mentioned and part of our society. So when we removed him, it should have gotten better, except the opposite happened. And we don't want to, we live in denial of this. We don't address it. We say, this is the problem, this gun is the problem. You know, the Columbine shooting, one of them wore a thing about, one of his shirts was about evolution, kicking up evolution here, getting rid of the weak, natural selection. This part of, this has nothing to do with the gun control part, has nothing to do with what should be done here. I just strongly disagree with this, you know, this notion that we can do something that would ever change the outcome of this. You know, this kid, I don't know. I just strongly disagree with this. My life is really busy right now, and I got a lot of things going on. So sorry about that. But anyways, I stood to speak against it.
Thank you. Keith Best?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. As some of you might know, I work in the state capitol in Madison. I'm chief of staff to a legislator, do a lot of research for him, and in the meantime, there are things that are being done by our state government where I don't think this resolution is needed. The Attorney General has come out with millions of dollars that are allocated towards school safety. What they're doing is they're making schools hard targets instead of a soft target where people can walk in off the streets and create mayhem. I do know that as a previous speaker spoke on the last mass school shooting was done with a shotgun, not a military style assault weapon. And it is a military style, it's not an assault weapon per se. I own an AR-15. I use it for hunting. My wife likes it because it has hardly any kick. My sons use it because it's easy to use, and they like the high-capacity magazines because especially my wife, because she has slightly arthritic fingers and she doesn't like to keep on reloading. It's not necessary. It's not the gun. It's a mental health issue. So I still think that some of these things, as far as background checks, there are times they are done by licensed dealers, which is the right way to do it. But there are times, as when my father-in-law gave my oldest boy, when he was 12 years old, a single-shot .22 rifle. Taught him how to use it, taught him how to target shoot, taught him how to hunt. It is part of our heritage. That being said, I think we need to see what the state legislature is going to do. I know a number of communities have reached out for this money, and it has been going around the state, millions of dollars, to make schools safer. And I think that's what needs to be done, and I think this resolution is going about it the wrong way. Thank you very much.
I think by now I get this last name correct. Please forgive me, Luke.
Dykowski.
Dykowski. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Over the course of the last few months, and certainly last night, I don't think I've left any questions about how I view some of the stances this committee's taken on the school safety resolution. However, I do think that I owe the committee some clarification on why I'm so vehemently pursuing this issue. When I look at our nation's schools today, and I look at us, I think of the analogy of cooking frogs. If you drop a frog into a pot of hot water, the frog's going to jump out right away. But if you put the frog in a pot of tepid water and then slowly crank up the heat, the frog won't jump. It won't realize how hot the water is getting. It will normalize the gradually increasing temperature until it's too late and the frog is cooked. Today, we are the frogs, and the water of violence and evil is heating up. And it wasn't until freshman year, I was sitting in a lockdown at school, and I found myself very suddenly, but very calmly and very rationally thinking, what if today it's real? How am I going to act? What am I going to do if I hear a gunshot in the hallway? What am I going to do if the lock blows off the door and somebody comes through this door intent and able to kill me and my teacher and every single one of my classmates sitting here? And then I realized that this is not normal. That I, as a freshman on the floor of my English classroom, should be thinking this. That my little brother in a school on the other side of the district should be thinking this. That kids so young they can't read should be thinking this when their nap time gets interrupted by the intercom telling them locks, lights, out of sight is so abhorrently and terrifyingly wrong. The water around us is scalding hot, and the burner that is the unfettered ability to obtain instruments of mechanized death is cranked up, and the flames are licking at the pot. And behind me, there's a group of frogs who are screaming, "Jump! Jump out and turn off that burner." And in this room tonight, there are frogs who are instead offering ice cubes. It was Sun Tzu who wrote, "In defending, we should rely on the fact that we have made our position unassailable, not hardened with bulletproof glass and greater training for SROs, not impenetrable with each classroom a fortress and each teacher an armed guard, unassailable, because those who would perpetrate evil and violence with high magazine, easy-to-use weapons have been stripped of their ability to assail us with the horror of automatic and assault-style weapons." This is why I speak to the committee with such fervor. I don't have any malice towards you in my heart. I'm desperate. I'm desperate because no matter how many millions of dollars on ice cubes we budget, the fire is going to continue to rage and the water will continue to boil. For the sake of my brother, for the sake of my friends and my mentors, for the sake of those little children who can't read, but who can still be very, very afraid, I'm asking the committee to do their part to reach down and turn off the burner. Thank you for your time.
Next would be Tom, is it Nitsky?
Yes.
Thank you, and to be followed by Susie Nitsky.
Well, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Tom Nitsky, and I just have a few points I want to make about the resolution. And first off, I want to say that we shouldn't be here debating state or federal gun laws. This school board here doesn't have the power to make or change laws. It has the power to, make school policy and make safe conditions for our students. I really want this group to focus on comprehensive ideas on how to protect our students within state and federal law that we currently have. And I also would like the board to take a look at protection for schools of after-school activities. My daughter currently attends after-school care, and I find it almost scary easy to walk into that building to get my child. It's like, wow. And that needs to be looked at. So with that said, please really take a look at hardening our schools, making them safe within state and federal law. Thank you.
I'm the good Nitsky. Just kidding. I'm Susie Nitsky. First, I just want to start out by saying I work with mental health issues. That's what I do for a living. A gun does not walk into a school and shoot somebody. Basically, I don't support the anti-gun resolution. It's completely a waste of time because as school board members, you all took an oath to protect the U.S. and state constitutions. So I believe at this time it shouldn't even be discussed and it needs to stop. As a parent of a student at Waukesha School District, I only support the protection of our students by securing our buildings like we do airports, arming a select volunteer staff. We have to protect the after school, like my husband said. We can walk in that school anytime after 3 o'clock. That's a huge issue for me. When my daughter was 4 years old, we bought her a gun. We bought her a Little Red Ryder. She is now 10. She goes to the shooting range with us. It's education on gun control. She knows exactly what to do with a gun. She's been in Taekwondo since she was 3. She's not gonna pick up a gun and walk into a school and shoot somebody. It's a mental health issue and it's uneducating your family members. The tactics of Saul Alinsky will not be tolerated. Conservatism is onto the rules for radicals as the playbook by the left. Gun control only protects criminals. I am pro-NRA, I am pro-Trump, and I am a huge defender of the Second Amendment. Liberal policies do kill. Too bad they can't ask the 250 million dead that the liberal socialist policies have killed throughout the world in our past century. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Kurt O'Brien to be followed by Lauren Yoder.
Thank you. Committee members, I appear today to urge your support for the amended resolution that is before this committee. The amended resolution reaffirms the school board's commitment to the U.S. Constitution and in particular the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The amended motion is a call to action directed at those officials who can act on matters that would further enhance the ability of local officials across the state to protect our school communities. The resolution does not call for any specific regulation or restriction on firearms in either their sales, distribution, or possession. The resolution is only specific in that it asks legislators to focus on efforts on dangerous firearms in the possession of dangerous persons who are deemed a threat to school communities. An amendment is added so that we can request WASB to the Wisconsin Associated School Boards to pass a resolution on this matter as well. We all need a good history lesson on the founding of our country and our obligations as we swear to uphold the Constitution when we take our oath of office. Our Constitution preamble contains the phrase domestic tranquility. Domestic tranquility was extremely important to our founding fathers when they met to form a new Constitution that would bind the colonies together. Under the former Articles of Confederation that preceded the U.S. Constitution, the federal government was without the power to put down armed rebellions. The Shays Rebellion involved 4,000 Massachusetts rebels as they attempted to overthrow the Massachusetts Commonwealth and state. The federal government could offer no assistance, and a rebellion was put down by 3,000 Massachusetts militiamen under the command of General Lincoln. Retired General George Washington called for a new Continental Congress to draft a new constitution to empower the federal government with the resources to ensure domestic tranquility, with the target to put down armed insurgencies within the states and against the states. In addition, there was already the threat of individual states, Pennsylvania and Connecticut in particular, engaging in territorial wars. In essence, our founding fathers sought to destroy any attempt for armed conflict between states and citizens. This starting point for our U.S. Constitution is the foundation we have for regulating and restricting military-style armaments by our citizens. The Second Amendment is not an overrule of our sworn obligation to uphold or enact legislation to ensure domestic tranquility in our country. It is for this reason alone that the U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly refused to overturn reasonable regulations or laws on firearms, and especially armaments of war, such as fully automatic rifles or even semi-automatic rifles. In fact, our own President Donald Trump and his Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, are proceeding with a rule to ban bump stocks, a complete ban, in a concurrent view that citizens should not be allowed to purchase or possess fully automatic rifles. That is leadership. The NRA has indicated they support our president, his leadership, and the support of his Attorney General in this effort to ban bump stocks. The gun owners of America oppose this effort as they continue with the mistaken belief that no restrictions on firearms should be permitted because of the Second Amendment. The gun owners of America support the viewpoints of anarchists that our citizens should be sufficiently armed to overthrow our government. Certainly, this anarchist viewpoint of the gun owners of America is in full conflict with our Constitution and the views of our founding fathers. In closing, I urge each of you to encourage a better understanding of our U.S. history and our U.S. Constitution. It is in fact your duty to do so when you take your oath to serve on this school board. With a proper understanding of your sworn obligations, I believe each of you could support in full the resolution I have proposed you endorse today. I leave it up to those who follow me today to advocate for your support for their resolutions as well. Thank you.
Good evening. I've spoken to you a number of times in the past. My name is Lauren Yoder. I'm going to be a senior at Waukesha West High School this coming fall. So I decided to write my own resolution because I felt that earlier resolutions had either been far too strong or far too watered down to be sufficient for this particular board on this particular matter. So if you wouldn't mind, I will be reading it right now. Whereas over 90% of the American population supports background checks before guns make it into the hands of ordinary citizens, and whereas currently only federally licensed gun dealers in Wisconsin are required to perform background checks, while upwards of 1/4 of all gun sales occur via a secondary source through unlicensed dealers, thereby allowing individuals with a criminal record or those considered unstable and potentially dangerous to easy access to deadly firearms, and whereas mental health is unquestionably one key aspect of the gun violence epidemic, and whereas the state legislature is in the best position to work along with our governor to pass laws that will protect the students and citizens of Wisconsin, including the children of the school district of Waukesha, and whereas it is the responsibility of the school board not only to uphold the Constitution, but to take any measures necessary to protect the students of the district and to provide them with a safe, secure learning environment. Therefore, be it resolved that the school district of Waukesha is calling upon the Wisconsin State Legislature to pass legislation that will require mandatory background checks and registration for the sale of all guns. Furthermore, the district will implement new mental health initiatives centered around anti-bullying and constructive activities beginning in the 2018-2019 school year in order to ensure the safety of all students and faculty in the school district of Waukesha. I believe that this fully addresses all prior matters brought to your attention today through other speakers and at other meetings, and I hope that you will consider this moving forward.
Yeah. Next, we have Matthew Gifford, to be followed by Carl Locke.
Hello, I'm Matthew Gifford, and I just recently graduated from Waukesha North. I very distinctly remember my first lockdown drill. I was sitting in the library on my iPad, and we heard that we were going into a lockdown, and the librarian screamed, "Everyone get down, get down." And I remember getting out of my chair and going on and sitting on the floor. She then looked at me and waved for me to come over to her, and I ran over to her, and we ran 2 by 2 into the back room. This was my very first time having a very in-depth lockdown drill. And I'll never forget the feeling of not knowing whether it was real or not in the moment, and my friend sitting next to me crying because she was so scared. My last drill that I remember, again, it was in the library. I was in Lab 3 at the time in my E Achieve class. And we went into a lockdown drill, and as I got up out of my seat, my phone fell on the floor, and my teacher told me to leave it, and we walked into the library. I ran back to go and get my phone, and then I went back with the group, and we went into the small back room that I was in 3 years prior. My teacher laughed at me and said, "You went back to get your phone, are you kidding me?" And I've never fully said why it was my instinct to go and get my phone until I realized that it was my instinct, because having friends who have gone through school shootings before, they have always had their phone to contact their parents. I wanted my phone, in case it was real this time, to be able to tell my parents that I love them. It was the same with the new fire drills, and when you hear the fire alarm go off, your first instinct is to leave the building, but we can't do that anymore. We have to wait until we know there isn't an active shooter out there waiting for us. I remember the night before my school had our walkout. My friends and I that night discussed that there was a possibility of someone with a gun coming to Waukesha North, and that we would be putting ourselves in danger by walking out of our school for gun violence. We didn't think that it really would happen, and thankfully it didn't. But it was all in the back of our minds, and we knew that it was a real possibility that we would not make it home after school the next day. You cannot get bulletproof windows and doors, better cameras, and secure entrances, and then sit and tell me that guns are not the issue. My teacher and principal once told me that we will be arming ourselves in the coming drills in the next few years, to arm ourselves with books and other objects that we should throw at the shooter when they come into the room. We should not have to arm ourselves in an attempt to save each other from death when we are trying to get an education in the United States, which is why we need to be united and come together, and tackle this issue plaguing our nation's schools. This is why I support the proposals for school safety, to never have someone feel the need to tell their parents goodbye because they wanted to get an education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again. I'm here to emphasize that a ban on assault weapons is in the best interest of the children in the Waukesha School District. Everyone here has the same agenda and goals. We want to create a safe learning environment for children, teachers, and staff, and we abhor what happened at school shootings like Parkland, Sandy Hook, Columbine, and want to ensure that something like that never happens here. The solution, of course, needs to be multifaceted. Yes, it's important to improve mental health services in our schools and be able to identify troubled youth and intervene for the sake of the child and others. Yes, strengthening the SRO program is important, but when it comes to stating the obvious, banning assault weapons, I think I'm correct in stating that at least some of you will be totally against it. Emotional topics such as gun violence, unfortunately wrapped up in politics, can easily end in gridlock, where facts and figures no longer matter. I hope this discussion doesn't turn out that way. Instead, I hope the board does what is truly best in the interest of the children. We build bridges and skyscrapers. Although we take every precaution, there's always a good possibility one or more workers will lose their lives. But instead of saying we shouldn't build them, we proceed because the good of society demands it. In the case of assault weapons, we know that availability of these things will increase carnage, and it's proven fact that if we remove or at least severely limit these weapons, children's lives in particular will be saved. If we were to apply the bridge and skyscraper analogy here, what is so good about allowing assault weapons to be owned that justifies those lives that are lost? I can't think of a good reason. Can you? Let's talk about some of the reasons you might have for rejecting a ban on assault weapons. Number one, there's too many assault weapons out there to do anything about it. Australia implemented their ban on assault weapons, and it only took them 2 months to implement. With the ban in place, the number of these weapons will diminish in time or go into hiding, which could also be a good thing. Number two, the shooter will just find another way to kill you. Unfortunately, this may be true, but why assist them in providing them a weapon that can inflict greater casualties? Do we not do everything to protect life? Do we not continue to work on a cure for cancer, even though you may die from a different disease? And the granddaddy of all, number three, guns don't kill people, people do. That is exactly the reason why we should limit access to powerful and unnecessary weapons, because some people will always be troubled, unreliable, and unpredictable.
30 seconds.
Please do the right thing and include, for the sake of our children, a ban on assault weapons in your resolution. Thank you.
Yeah. We're getting there, folks. Next will be Joyce Schmitz, to be followed by Steve Schmitz.
Good evening again. At your last meeting, one member of this committee suggested what we are doing is a waste of the board's time. I think the phrase was, we have more important things to do, or maybe it was better things to do than write resolutions. You do have important things to do. There's no question about that. But better or more important, if one of the 3 people in Waukesha County that since Parkland made school-related threats follows through on them, is that what you would tell the parent of a victim? Sorry, but we had more important things to do than face the issue of assault weapons. I respectfully disagree with this board member because I do not feel there's anything more important in these times for this board to address than the safety of school children. Why does there seem to be a reluctance on the part of some board members to bring this issue regarding assault weapons to a vote by the full board? Both of the proposed resolutions that we submitted referred to a ban on assault weapons. The first resolution prepared by the administrative staff refers to assault weapons. But now we have a new resolution from the administrative staff, which you directed them to prepare and which apparently you intend to vote on tonight, that makes no mention of assault weapons. Why? It's time to cut to the chase. As Mr. Baumgart said last night, this has been going on for 4 months. Why not show your support for this assault weapons ban and have it in place by the time the students come back to school? What a great message that would be from their elected school officials. Thank you again for your time.
Good evening. Some board members may think that this is all about politics and that the board shouldn't be involved in political matters. I suppose it kind of depends on how you define politics, but I generally agree. Your positions are nonpartisan, and when I voted last April, I wasn't voting for someone depending on what I thought their political affiliation might be. I suggest that however you define politics, this request of ours only becomes political if you make it political, not us, only if you make it political. Since we started this in early March, I have heard nothing from our supporters that would make this a political matter. Likewise, I have thus far heard nothing from the board, whether at meetings or out in the hallway, that makes this political. To the best of my knowledge, there's no local political party that is pushing for or against our request, and I'm glad that this has not become politics, because in my opinion, we should have nothing but contempt for people who make students' lives a political issue, which is what goes on in Washington, D.C. I hope you agree that we don't want that here. It would be hugely disappointing to many, many people in this district to learn that politics or political considerations were behind someone's position on a matter pertaining to students' lives. Next, I have a comment about some things the board members said about results and process and effectiveness. A pragmatic or result-oriented approach has its place in an organization. There's no doubt about that, including school boards. It can be effective, and sometimes it's necessary to accomplish a task. But there are times when you set that aside and you do what you do because it's the right thing to do. This national tragedy of children being murdered in schools with weapons that can and should be banned is one of those times. And if you are hesitant to proceed because, after all, what difference will it make if one more school board supports this ban, then ask yourself if that's how you respond when someone says, I'm not voting in this next election, it's just one vote and my vote doesn't count. It does count. And a board resolution that supports an assault weapons ban will count. Today, we received a copy of the new resolution that this committee told the administration to prepare. With respect, it totally misses the point. It says nothing at all about banning assault weapons and instead tells everyone, go to a town hall or a public hearing and talk to state legislators. It is precisely because politicians have not acted on this issue that students across the nation have mobilized and that we are here. Instead of telling us to go away, I suggest that you go. Go to North, go to South, go to West high schools, get up on the auditorium stage and listen to what the students have to say about assault weapons. I think that would be a very good effort on your part. Last thing I want to say is this. I will never be reluctant to remind you of what has happened in our schools. I'll never be reluctant to tell you about that. Sometimes when we get farther away in time from these things, we tend to forget about them. In the time it takes me,
30 seconds.
in the time it took me and the previous speaker to make our comments, on December 14 in 2012 at the Sandy Hook School in Connecticut, 26 and 7-year-old children and 6 staff members were murdered. The assault weapon allowed the shooter to accomplish that in less than 5 minutes. Thank you for your time.
That concludes the part of our committee meeting where folks have chosen to sign up. Is there anybody else in the audience at this time that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none. Julie, these comments have been forwarded on to you so that it's on the record, but I have 2 more citizens that would like to voice their feelings. Says, my name is Carrie Schulte, and I live at 2019 Avondale Court, Waukesha, Wisconsin. I have 2 daughters in the public schools, one at Randall, one at Saratoga. I am writing this message regarding the Safety Committee's resolution regarding protecting our students. While I feel that the school board should do everything in its power to keep children safe at school, I do not believe that they should get involved with gun control legislation or pushing it. The board has the responsibility to students and taxpayers regarding our schools, not the banning of weapons or pushing for legislation regarding gun control. Gun control outside of the school is not their job, and they should not be involved. I believe the school board has a plan that resources are in place to protect our children by limiting access to our schools, employing counselors, and keeping open communications with police department. We saw this work firsthand at Saratoga in the past year, when 2 individuals seemed to be peeking into the windows. The kids went into a soft lockdown. Most did not even know what was going on. The individuals were not allowed in the school, and the police were called. The incident was resolved quickly and was only a matter of some food services, This incident was resolved quickly and was only a matter of some food service workers being lost. It is my belief that the bad guys will always find a way to get guns. If someone wants to hurt people, they will find a way, whether it be gun, knife, or anything else. It is not the responsibility of the board to decide how local or federal laws are handled. Their job is inside the schools. Thank you and best regards, Carrie Schulte. Julie, the next comes from Carrie Ludecki. My name is Carrie Ludecki, and I live at 1943 Michigan Avenue in Waukesha, Wisconsin. I have a son at Waukesha North and a daughter at Butler Middle School. In addition, both of them have completed 6 years at Lowell Elementary. I am writing regarding the Safety Committee's resolution regarding protecting our students. I believe that the school board should do everything in its power to keep our children safe at school. However, I do not believe that they should get involved with gun control or its legislation. Their job is to work the schools and protect our children while on the grounds. There have been a few issues at the schools during our tenure in the district. It is my belief that the time would be better spent on working building security at each school. The current situation at Lowell, Butler, and North is, for all intents and purposes, ringing the buzzer and being told to walk to the office. By the way, the office is not always located near the door. All one has to do is speak into the intercom and say, I am here to pick up a child. The person at the door is buzzed in along with whatever wagon of explosive paraphernalia they can haul. How are we allowing this? Now, please tell me how lobbying for gun control is going to solve that immediate problem. Someone choosing to harm will always find a way to get a gun. It is not the responsibility of the school board to decide how local or federal laws are written. The job of the school board is to make sure that the, quote, bad guys stay away from the schools for law enforcement to handle. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Carrie Ludecki. And that, I believe, are all of the public comments. Thank you, everyone, for your words and your sentiments. They are appreciated to understand and know what the community is feeling and saying. We're going to move on in our meeting tonight. We have passed this. Next, we have action items. The first action item up for consideration are the minute approval for June 21st, 2018, the Safety and Security Meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. McCaffrey. Is seconded?
I'll second it.
Great, thank you.
Do have a modification to
Okay,
it.
thank you, let's go.
If you were to look at the very end, we state that the next meeting is going to be tonight at 6 o'clock. We actually didn't make that decision that evening, so I suggest that we move that after the time ended or just strike it. That was really not part of our discussion, so I think we should just strike it.
Okay.
Pardon?
It usually goes after the time ended.
Do you want to move it instead?
It doesn't.
I'd be okay with that,
Yeah,
too.
we could just move it, because that's how
Yeah.
they usually do.
I'm okay
That's
with,
how-
I'm okay with
That's how the
moving it.
minutes are usually written.
I know we're trying to get into a standard format here,
Yep. No, it's up, yeah, it's either
so
or.
we'll just move it. I'm good with that.
Okay, so there's been a motion and a second with an amendment to just adjust the end of the minutes here. We don't need a roll call on this, right? We can do a vocal call?
Vocal.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, Julie passes 3-0. All right, next on our agenda, we move along to our action item B, which is the school safety resolution. So last month, we had 2 resolutions on our desk. The committee, after reviewing and discussing, chose to have another option presented, which in the packet is titled Resolution on School Safety Draft 5. Nope, excuse me, that's incorrect. 3. There's a lot of resolutions here, guys. Forgive me. Draft 3, and that was a directive from the committee to administration to come up with something. And then also brought up, we had draft 4 from Mr. Schmitz. We have draft 5 as with the amendment from Mr. O'Brien. And we also have Ms. Yoder's resolution draft. There are a lot of things to consider. Gentlemen, after having an opportunity to read these, I would like to hear your input on them, or would it be best that we read these out loud so that everyone else can get an idea of what we're referring to? Do you have any objections to that, Mr. McCaffrey?
I do not.
Okay, so Ms. Yoder has read hers for us out loud. Mr. O'Brien's draft is as follows.
This is the amended draft or the
This
first
is the
one that he
amended draft,
submitted?
excuse me. Yes,
Okay.
this is the amended draft. It reads, whereas the School District of Waukesha values the safety of all students and staff, whereas the school authorities need more effective means to ensure that students and staff safety in the event of a heavily armed individual or individuals mount an attack against the school community. Whereas there are limited legal options to prevent hostile people from gaining access to dangerous and deadly firearms. Whereas the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States proclaims a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whereas the Second Amendment does not prevent our legislators from enacting reasonable regulations on the sales, purchase, and possession of dangerous and deadly firearm. Whereas as elected officials, we are duly sworn to defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin. Be it resolved that we, the duly elected school board members of the School District of Waukesha, respectfully request that our state legislature and governor pass and enact a legislation to constitutionally regulate the sale, distribution, and possession of dangerous and deadly firearms. Be it resolved that we, the duly elected school board members of the School District of Waukesha, respectfully request a resolution to be prepared by WASB, which is the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, Policy and Resolutions Committee for consideration by the WASB delegates at the next annual meeting, which states the following. The Wisconsin Association of School Boards respectfully request our state legislature and governor pass and enact legislations to regulate the sales, distribution, and possession of dangerous and deadly firearms as needed to more fully protect our school community from individuals who represent or that present a threat of any kind to the school community. That's one for thought. Then we have the latest draft from Mr. Schmidt submitted to us on July 4th. This is labeled Draft 4 for anybody who has the packet. Whereas mass shootings and gun violence in the United States occurs all too frequently, with devastating consequences for families everywhere. And whereas mass shootings in the schools such as Columbine, Sandy Hook, and Parkland cause educators, parents, and students to be concerned about whether schools can still be safe and secure place for the children to learn and grow. And whereas we, the members of the school board of the, Whereas we, the members of the Board of Education of the School District of Waukesha, are committed to promoting the cause of education and the safety of our students, and do not believe that the efforts to achieve these goals are or should be partisan or political. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the School District of Waukesha support the following measures as part of a comprehensive effort to reduce the likelihood of mass shootings in schools and other places. 1, except for military and law enforcement personnel, a ban on sale, transfer, possession, and ownership of military-style semi-automatic assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. 2, the diligent enforcement of laws and regulations on background checks and waiting periods as they apply to the sale and the purchase of firearms. And 3, closing loopholes in existing laws that allow sellers and buyers of the firearms to circumvent regulation through transfers accompanied privately or at trade shows. That's 1, 2, 3. Those are the drafts that that were submitted by the community. And then lastly, the third draft, which was brought to us from administration, reads as follows. Whereas the School District of Waukesha values the safety and security of all students and staff. Whereas the School District of Waukesha Board of Education has passed policies that address school safety within our buildings and at our events. Whereas the state of Wisconsin and the United States of America has established laws and policies on gun ownership, background check, and gun-free school zones. Whereas the state of Wisconsin has allotted grant funding for mental health and school safety. Whereas the School District of Waukesha has conducted a system-wide facility study to determine areas of improvement to increase the safety and security of our students and staff. Whereas the School District of Waukesha has applied for and was awarded $518,605 in school safety grant funds for facilities upgrades. Whereas the School District of Waukesha collaborates with law enforcement agencies, Waukesha County Health and Human Services, and neighboring school districts on safety planning. Whereas the School District of Waukesha has collectively developed comprehensive plans addressing the school safety with local law enforcement agencies. Whereas the School District of Waukesha employs school counselors, social workers, psychologists to assist students with their social and emotional needs. Whereas the School District of Waukesha Board of Education acknowledges the growing mental health and addiction needs that exist in society. Whereas the School District of Waukesha Board of Education members are elected officials and sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, including the First Amendment, which states, Congress shall make no law prohibiting the right of people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Therefore, be it resolved that we, the duly elected school board members of the School District of Waukesha, respectfully request our state and federally elected officials to increase the level of funding for school districts for school safety and mental health services, increasing funding for screening and preventative services for threat assessment, remove barriers to communication between law enforcement and school and human services organizations, and to hold public hearings and town hall sessions so that citizens who have concerns around school safety, mental health, drug addiction, and gun control can voice their concern to the proper elected officials that have the lawmaking jurisdiction in these areas of concern. Thank you for bearing with me and reading through those. I found it important to do so because we are being aired tonight, and for those who are watching and joining us, welcome, but also so that they have a better understanding as to what we're referring to. Now, with all of that being said, gentlemen, your input at this time would be appreciated. Anyone? Either one? It's a lot to take in. It was a lot to read, and forgive me, my mouth is super dry.
So I guess my question would be, what's the format? Are we going to vote on every one of these, or what's the thought process behind it? Or are we only voting on what's agendized? Can we vote on anything that's, I mean,
Because
can
it's
we
listed-
only vote on the ones that are in our
That's
packet?
on
How does
the
that work?
agenda.
I don't know, I'm just asking about
Well,
That's a
what
good
that looks
question.
like legally.
Well, it is for discussion and for action, so we can talk on any of these. We can add in any thoughts that we want. And if someone wishes to, provide a motion for any of these, they can do so.
Even for the ones that are not
So
in the
we
packet.
are agendized for action, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so.
Okay. So looking at,
I just want to make sure that Lauren's would be included in that.
okay, so we're just getting
What I mean,
It
clarification
really
here.
is
Okay.
virtually
I
anything
just wanted to
that-
make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting clarification on what to be discussed, and all four of these are open for discussion.
I'd suggest that we refer to Ms. Loader's as draft number 6. So
Okay,
we-
just for,
It might just be easier to
All
have some
right.
numbers here.
a little bit of housekeeping, please bear with us, thank you very much. All right, so we have draft 3, 4, 5, and 6 presented. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairperson. There have been a number of resolutions, as you know, that people have submitted, that board members have submitted, at least Mr. O'Brien has. We've had administration work on one. We've had a couple from our residents. I don't know if I have ever remembered a time in my life where I read so many whereases and therefores. And I've read and reread each of these multiple times, and this has been building up over time. I honestly do appreciate the discussions, the emails, the phone calls, the meetings outside in the hallway. A lot of times I get pulled aside in the grocery store. When you're a board member, you're always wearing your board hat, and so you can always be available to talk on these things. And I do make myself available for people to talk on whether it's this issue or any other issue. And so do my fellow board members. We pride ourselves in gathering information so we can make good decisions. So first of all, I want to thank people for caring about this community and for participating in this process. And as I've mentioned before, I'm a more pragmatic person. I do focus on things that we control. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted this committee to be formed in the first place, to knock it up a level, to have the Board of Education have safety and security be front and center on a regular basis, so that we can continuously talk on this. We have been talking on this for decades, ever since I've been on the board. We've had an administrative safety and security team forever, as far as I know. And we just wanted to kick that up a notch, and I believe we've done so. The draft that I most relate to and I would like to focus on is draft number 3, the one that you just finished reading, that was developed by our administration after we had directed an administration do so after the discussion of our last safety and security meeting. First of all, I believe that draft 3 captured our sentiments at the last committee meeting. This is a resolution that I can support. And when I took a look at all the whereas statements, and I read those carefully, and I read the therefore statements carefully, the whereas statements, I think, correctly itemize what we've been doing as a board, and we've been doing many of these things, or most of these things, for many years. We've added some more recent things that I think have kind of bubbled up due to the intensity of the discussion. I believe the therefore let it be resolved reflects things that I can agree with, to ask our state and federal legislators to do those things. And those are the types of things that I would like to see supported by our district. So I'm feeling very comfortable with draft 3. And just to get things started, I'm going to make a motion so that we can start moving forward on this to approve draft 3 as presented.
The motion, is there a second?
Second?
Okay. So now we can continue with discussion. Do you have anything else to add to this?
Well, I mean, I like draft 3 as well. It's everything that I am interested in, and I think would go a long way to, curbing violence in the schools, all kind of violence, just not gun violence, because I'm worried about all the violence that happens in school, just not the gun violence. My question is, how would it look? And this is just obviously a point of matter is, how would it look if we moved more than one up? What would that look like at the board? Do we have any idea what that would look like if we were voting on 2 drafts or 3 drafts? I mean, because this is a little unprecedented that we could vote on, 5 or 6 or whatever, and send 5 or 6 things up to the board out of one. So what would that look like?
I think from a point of order standpoint, this motion would have to be voted on, either supported or voted down. Okay. And then there would either have to be a motion to pass another resolution on, or if that motion were voted down, then it would be considered to pass resolutions 1, 2, and 3 along, or 1 and 2 along, or 5 and 6 along, however it would.
Okay, but I wonder what that would look like at the board. Would we vote? Each individual, like what if 2 passed at the board? We're gonna send 2 resolutions? I don't know.
Personally, I don't think we should pass 2 resolutions.
Well,
I think we should pass one resolution. So from my perspective,
Okay.
I would like personally to get one in front of the board, and that board then can amend, tear apart, can do whatever they want to that. And so, but this committee can forward anything that they want. I mean, we could say, we don't recommend any of these, but we want them all to go before the full board. We could, we could vote on moving 1 forward, or we could vote on moving 2 forward. So we can do whatever we want at the committee level. Personally, I think if we can work through moving 1 forward, it seems like that would be more of a traditional way to go about doing it. But this committee can do any of those things.
We could do any of
So, and that's why we're here tonight, I guess. So,
No, I just wanted
but
to
that's
make sure.
That's a good question.
Because send 3 up and 3 pass.
We're in the same boat.
We're in the same boat that we are right now. That's exactly
Okay.
right.
Yeah, and I would prefer to have the committee do this work
Right.
as opposed to the full board do this work. That's why we have committees. I don't know if you've noticed, and every time that I get into our committee reports, I say the heavy lifting is typically done by the committees, because it is. And so personally, I would hope that we can figure out what to present to the board, but I don't know how the conversation's gonna go, so.
Excellent. So I am also in favor of draft 3. I would like to thank everybody for coming before us, both at the board and the committee meetings, to voice your opinion. I think it's very important. I think it's very rare that this happens. It's rare that it happens for anything that we do at the school district, so it's great to see people get involved in local governance. I think it's great. So moving on to the other ones, Lauren, fantastic. I think it's great that you wrote a resolution. I read it, I loved it, it's good. Mr. O'Brien's resolution, I think that's a well-written resolution as well. However, at the last meeting, I did state that I was not interested in sending up any sort of lobbying for laws regarding gun control at the state and local government. And then, of course, Mr. Schmitz knows that I'm not in favor of banning any weapons. That's no surprise to anybody in the gallery, so. But draft 3, I do like very much.
Okay. Well, I am going to echo my fellow committee members in that I do prefer draft 3. It, in my opinion, does reflect a lot of the conversation that we had at our first committee meeting. But with that being said, there are some points in the other resolutions that I like, and I've never written a resolution before. I don't know how long these things are supposed to be before you just
It can be
get
any
too
length.
tired of reading whereas.
Can have a million whereases.
But I figured that much. But there's a section out of the 3, 4, 5, and 6 that I would recommend amending draft 3 and adding to it. So out of resolution 4, I would add the 3rd paragraph. Wait, maybe that's already stated in here. Excuse me. So the 3rd paragraph has to do with promoting the cause of education and safety for students, and we do not believe that efforts to achieve these goals should be political or partisan. Mr. Cook, did I miss that in yours? Is there anything like that listed in the 3rd draft?
Draft 3, there is nothing that talks about these efforts being political,
Okay.
not being political or partisan, so that would be an addition. There is a statement in there that the board believes that they're committed to promoting the safety and security. So this addition would fit and would not be redundant.
It wouldn't be, okay. So I would like to see paragraph 3 of draft 4 added to draft 3. I would also like to see I'm looking at draft 5, which is draft from Mr. O'Brien, where he adds his amendment to add, to ask WASB, the WASB delegates to consider something at their next meeting. The reason why I would be in favor of that is because WASB's role, they speak on behalf of the school boards. They are an entity that can go and lobby. So, as I also stated before, we are the elected officials of the community. You're looking at me like, I'm getting there, I promise. I hear and I know that you're asking us to do something. I feel that what you're asking is not something that we're responsible to do as far as telling our legislators how they should write their rules as a full body. As an individual, oh yes, I'm there with you. But WASB's role is to lobby, and they can do that. So I would be okay with saying, WASB, this is what our citizens are telling us, this is what they're asking us, therefore go forward and do that. So me personally, I would be okay with adding part of his amendment to draft 3. Does that make sense?
So exactly as written? So you're talking the last two paragraphs exactly as written?
Well, those two paragraphs,
What,
What-
both paragraphs, or just the,
it is a be resolved,
or just 7?
I'm just asking what
Yeah,
you're,
right.
right, no.
asking which
Well,
words.
maybe reword it a little bit so that it's clear, saying that this, whereas this is the request of our constituents. So that it's clear that we're coming forward based off of their request, asking WASB to go forward with that. Does that make more sense? Because, like I said, I think that is, WASB can do that.
Yeah, WASB's definitely the lobbying arm.
All right.
Yeah, I wouldn't,
Yes.
I wouldn't,
Clarification, that amendment is just for the basis of making it clear that our board has taken an action, and this is the resolution we're asking them to consider at the resolution committee. So the amendment is just, as it's added, is precisely the way it probably should go to WASB. We don't have to go and say our citizens want us to do this, it's just that the board has to approve
Okay.
it. That's the purpose of it.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So I'm a little confused.
Okay.
The way, so it might just be best for you to tell us which words you want to have added. Because I could see, first when you started explaining it, I thought you meant we would take the second to last paragraph, keep that as is, but then reiterate the therefore in draft 3 underneath. Because that's kind of how it paralleled.
So those two would be
That's how it
redundant.
parallels, because if you look at Mr. O'Brien's proposal, really paragraph 3 and the last paragraph, or these two paragraphs, the third to the bottom
Okay,
and the bottom are almost the same,
okay.
right? So it's like the therefore is, the first therefore deals with what we feel, but then we want to almost restate it. It's not exactly the same, but almost, or is it exactly the same? In the last paragraph. So I didn't know if you wanted to parallel that
Oh, okay,
approach.
okay. I see that.
Do you see what I'm saying? Or did you want to literally choose the two last paragraphs?
All right, just so that
I
everybody.
was confused.
All right, I reconfused myself in listening to you. So, the second to the last paragraph of draft 5 reads, "Be it resolved that we, the duly elected school board of School District of Waukesha, respectfully request the resolution to be prepared by WASB Policy and Resolution Committee to be considered by WASB delegates at the next meeting." And then the recommendation is the WASB would respectfully request our state legislature and governor to pass and enact legislation to regulate the sales, distribution, and possession of dangerous and deadly firearms as needed to more fully. So it would, well, reading that, it would be both paragraphs then. Because, yes, both those paragraphs. All right, and then the last addition that I would have to draft 3, this is Ms. Yoder's resolution, and I would add, as long as it's not redundant, and please address it if it is, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. The legislature is in the best position to work alongside the governor to pass laws. The next following paragraph, whereas the responsibility of the school board to uphold the Constitution, but to make necessary measures to the district, to protect the students of the district, to provide them with safe and secure learning environment. Again, if it's redundant, then pull it. And then a portion of the therefore paragraph. Furthermore, the district will implement new mental health initiatives centered around anti-bullying and constructive activities. I know that there are things already in place, but if we come forth in the new school year and work with our teaching and learning committees or whoever else it needs to be to bring up a new initiative at the beginning of the school year, I think that's great. And I would, before adding that, furthermore sentence to the draft 3. Was everybody confused enough? I've read these over and over, and
We do have a motion on the floor, so what we could do is we could take each of these as an amendment, one at a time, and be very specific with the wording.
Yes, what you're saying.
yes. Point of order, what would be my next step here, Joe? Please help me out.
Because we have a motion to pass Resolution 3 along to the board, I believe we would need to vote on that at this time. And then we would have to then make a motion to pass Resolution 3 along to the board with the amendments that were recommended, if I understand it correctly.
Or amendments can be made right now. We have a motion on the floor, so what you could do is you could move to amend draft 3 with specific words, telling us where it would go. And then if there was a second on that, then we could discuss that amendment. And then we could vote on that amendment and see whether or not that's added in there.
All right, so.
Or we could keep this as just complete as is, but I would say we can make amendments to this if we want.
Okay. So, again, my recommendation to draft 3 would be to add paragraph 3 of draft 4, paragraphs 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of draft 6, and the sentence in the therefore beginning with therefore.
Oh, that's, okay, that's
Draft
Ms.
6.
Yoder's. Okay, draft 6, I'm sorry.
Paragraph 4, paragraph 5, and the sentence furthermore out of paragraph 6.
Exactly as written.
Yeah, well, that last sentence would be, furthermore, the district will implement new mental health initiatives centered around anti-bullying and constructive activities beginning in the 2018-2019 school year and I would add, in order to help ensure the safety of all students and faculty in the school district of Waukesha. That's how I would word that last sentence.
Is that a motion?
That is, I'm sorry. Yes, I was waiting to
Or
hear
an
something.
amendment? Is that an
That's-
amendment?
First amendment?
That would be the First
That would be
Amendment.
your First Amendment, okay.
Yes. So that's the motion, the amendment, so there's our second to that,
You'd have to get a second.
A second.
seconded by Mr. McCaffrey. Go ahead, discussion.
I think that's a lot to talk about in one amendment.
Okay.
Personally, I would like to see us, because we're taking a lot of pieces from a lot of different places. I either need a little bit of time to look through all of it and really comprehend it, or I would suggest that we really break it up into different amendments with individual whereases and therefores, just from my perspective.
So, just for my understanding, what do you mean break them down?
So I would not support the amendment in a bunch of things just being thrown into draft 3 right now.
Okay.
It's just, I'd rather talk about each individual whereas and each individual therefore and have it be separate amendments, actually.
Okay.
I just think it's too much to take, I mean, it's one big, long conversation on a ton of, it's really more than one amendment. It's a bunch of amendments in my eyes.
Okay, so with that being said, we would vote on the motion and the amendment.
Well, we have to first vote to see if we're even going to consider the amendment
Okay, so let's take a vote to consider an amendment
as presented.
as presented. All in favor?
Okay, so we're voting on,
I'm so sorry,
we're
guys.
voting on the addition of Mrs. Yoder's?
Oh, no, I'm
All of
sorry.
them.
Right,
I'm sorry.
okay.
Point of order on myself. Once there's a first and a second made, then we can discuss the
Yes,
amendments. And-
yes.
And I'm sorry.
Okay,
we're-
I was
we're
thinking
not-
So,
Yeah.
we're too far, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's my mistake.
Okay.
Okay. So,
So we currently have a motion
yes,
to accept, to consider draft 3 with amendments from additions from draft 3, or 4, 5, and 6.
right.
That is the current on the floor, correct? Okay,
So why don't we talk maybe about each of them?
all right.
Okay,
One at a time. Maybe that's the best approach to take.
okay.
I'll go ahead
So
with
your first one is what?
My first addition would be draft 4, paragraph 3.
Okay, so whereas we, the members of the Board of Education of the School District of Waukesha, are committed to promoting the cause of education and the safety of our students, and do not believe that the efforts to achieve these goals are or should be partisan or political. Where would you suggest that goes?
That would go, first. That needs to start off the conversation, saying we're coming forth, and this is not a political or partisan thing. This is the safety of our students and staff.
Okay.
Where I see that going. Okay. Question on another one?
I understand what you're asking, and I'm okay with the position, at least, starting out here. Yep.
Okay. So then the next,
So that's the First Amendment.
that was the First Amendment.
So we're voting on that?
You know, I don't mind if we just take it all at once,
Okay.
but personally, you know,
Yeah, no, it doesn't, I just want to make sure that we're doing everything.
Yes.
I mean, because that was the motion to do them all.
Yes,
So-
okay,
Okay.
yes.
Joe, did you have an, about the second edition, or second amendment coming out of draft 5 to add to draft 3? Which was the last 2 paragraphs of draft 5. Either Joe or Mr. McCaffrey.
We're looking for what we should add from this draft. I have no problem adding, be it resolved, well, let me see, 1. Paragraph 7 and 8, however, in 8, paragraph 8, I would strike, regulate the sale, distribution, and possession of dangerous and deadly firearms as needed too. So for me, it would say in paragraph 8, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards respectfully requests our state legislator and the governor pass and enact legislation to more fully protect our school communities from individuals who represent a threat to any school community. I would not put in there, for me, anything that dictates what, because this could mean a whole bunch of different legislation that they enact related to
Yep.
mental health or school funding or anything like that, or referendums. There's a lot of talk right now. Governor Walker's talking about loosening the referendum rules so you can raise taxes for safety and security in the district without going to referendum. That's one of the things he's talking about. So this would not focus just on weapons, guns, whatever. This would focus on any legislation that the governor and legislator might see fit to enact to more fully protect our school communities from individuals who represent a threat to any school community. So this is what I would strike right here.
Yes. I was following you, and I would agree to that.
Okay.
Mr. Como, do you have anything?
Yeah, first of all, I
Do you want to see what I was striking?
I did, I took
Okay.
notes. I do agree that having a therefore or a resolve, I would put a therefore before be it resolved.
Okay.
Or is there only just one? No, I would put it in
Yeah,
in each
no, I
one.
think you're right.
Therefore, comma.
Yep.
And I agree to strike to regulate the sales, distribution, and possession of dangerous and deadly firearms as needed.
Yeah.
I'm way more comfortable with that. I do believe we should get something in WASB's hands.
Yeah, I think so too.
Mr. O'Brien is our delegate for WASB, and I think he's doing his due diligence there.
Yeah, I just don't want
So
to
I would feel
make it one single
comfortable.
issue,
Okay.
because it's not.
I would feel comfortable with that.
I would feel comfortable with that amendment as well. So that, yes, sir.
Just as a drafting point, that therefore be it resolved, would you like that before the last paragraph of draft
Position.
3, or would you like that
Oh.
after the last paragraph in draft 3, or would you like it built in to the last paragraph of draft 3?
Perhaps built in.
I
might
would say
be
built in.
Better integrated.
Okay.
Because I think that actually that summarizes a lot of the therefore up above.
Right, it
right?
does, yep.
I mean, I think it really is a nice way to wrap it up.
Yep, I think so too.
I think it's tight.
Okay, yes, I agree to that.
Okay.
And then the last portion of the amendment would be out of draft 6,
Mrs. Yoders, or Ms. Yoders?
Ms. Yoder's resolution, to add paragraphs 4 and 5, as long as it's not redundant into what's already given in draft 3. Somebody else help me double-check this, and,
Well, I like the last paragraph. Furthermore, the district will implement new mental health, but I would strike new,
yes, okay.
because we may improve upon, or, improve upon a current program,
Didn't think
which
about
it would
that.
not be a new program, but we may do
Emphasize
something
it more,
different.
right.
It wouldn't be new. It would just be.
We do, don't we cover that in our draft 3 therefore?
Yeah, do we? That's what I'm
I think we
wondering.
do.
But this particular sentence adds, a timeline as to when we're doing it to show that, but yes, it does say that we would have, well, this is more specific to saying mental health initiatives centered around anti-bullying and constructive activities.
I would just add that Ms. Yoder's resolution is direct. That is a statement towards the district, whereas the resolution that you have, draft 3 of the resolution is directed at the state.
Oh, that's true.
Okay, yes,
So
okay.
That's where there's a difference between Ms. Yoder's and
Right,
with
no.
the
I
one
get
that you
it,
have.
okay.
Okay,
You're
so have it
100%
be a
correct.
separate therefore in that case.
Yes, or yes, a separate therefore.
I think that's acceptable,
I agree.
definitely.
Where would we put that therefore?
Would we put that
Should
back
that
in the
be-
front page where it's listing what we already do?
No, therefore needs to be at the
Oh,
end.
the therefore at the end, okay, yeah, that's right.
Right,
that's right.
I guess we're talking about the therefore first, which is okay.
I was just gonna add, it might be a nice standalone therefore.
I think so, too.
To not get mixed up with what's being asked of the state versus what is being asked of the
Yeah.
district.
Got it,
And
yes, so
so
before the,
have it be the first therefore or the
Therefore.
second therefore is what I'm saying. Because we only still have one therefore right now in draft
Mm-hmm.
3.
Perhaps the first.
yes, I agree.
That would be a
First,
good
therefore.
lead off. Okay,
All right.
but let's go back to the whereases. Which ones were you looking at? I'm sorry.
Paragraph 4, the legislature, well, I think that's already in draft 3. Something says that the legislator and the governor are the best district.
Which one are you looking at in 3?
That's what I'm trying to find, to make sure that, Joe, can you add in here, is paragraph 4 of draft 6
Oh, I see the
listed anywhere in
It's not specifically in there. I do believe that it could be tagged into, if you look at draft 3, paragraph 4, whereas the state of Wisconsin and the United States of America has established laws and policies on gun ownership, background checks, and gun-free school zones.
Right after that?
And then right after that, within the same sentence, and that the state legislature is in the best position to work along with our governor to pass laws that will protect the students and citizens of Wisconsin, including the children in the school district of Waukesha. I think we could just
Yes.
build
like
that in
that.
there as the next sentence to that whereas.
Did you follow that, Julie?
I have it marked down.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, I would agree that works there. And then,
Calling that C1, guys, just so, well, whatever. However you're marking your papers. We're adding on to the 1, 2, 3, 4th draft 3 whereas point, essentially, is what we're doing.
The third point, if just as a
It's the
point of
third whereas.
clarification.
Oh,
for
I'm
me,
sorry.
Yeah, it would be the third
one
one on draft 3.
Okay.
all right. And then my last recommendation, it would be adding, what's that?
There was another whereas,
Yes,
right?
yep, another
Okay.
whereas, which is paragraph 5 of draft 6.
Okay.
Again, I know that's already listed, let's see here, but to take measures to provide them, okay, I think we already have that in draft 6, so we don't, draft 3, oh my goodness, draft 3, so it would, so we can disregard paragraph 5 of draft 6. I'm done.
Yeah. And I think it's fine to handle it as one amendment. At
As one
first, I
amendment.
wasn't sure,
Yeah,
because we
right,
really
I know.
didn't, I mean, there was a lot to go through in a really short period of time. So I
Yes.
needed to truly understand where you wanted things and what the
No,
verbiage.
thank you for that clarification. And for those following us and watching us, thank you for bearing with that. It was a little bit painful, I know. But just to make sure everything's clear. Dr. Cook?
I would just like to add, on the submitted by, when this was drafted, I was lamenting the quick passing of the month of June. So the correct month on there should be July 2nd, not June 2nd.
Okay.
Just want everybody to be clear that this came after the first safety and
Well,
security.
yeah,
meeting.
right,
It was not
exactly,
before.
yes, I hear you.
I wrote June again.
So should we maybe review those amendments real quick and then vote on them, just to make sure we got them?
Well,
We haven't voted yet,
no,
but
we haven't.
it might be nice to have make sure our notes are all right. Or are you guys feeling okay?
I feel okay.
Feel okay.
Okay, I'm all right.
So,
I was just asking.
No, I feel that it's perfect.
Didn't wanna
Our
rush.
Administration has a great handle on what we want.
so the motion has already been presented.
We got to approve the amendments.
Now we have to vote.
Now we have to approve
Vote on the amendment?
the amendments.
Vote on the amendment, and then whether that passes or not,
Okay.
and then we have to vote on the original overall, whether
Draft
it was
3.
amended or not.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor to approve draft 3 with the amendments as presented. Is there a second? What am I doing? What did I do wrong?
All we're voting on right now are the amendments.
Oh, the amendments,
Yes.
okay. So, motion is the amendments that are presented. May I get a second?
It's already
Already
been
done.
seconded.
It's
and
seconded.
Yep.
So
We-
now
we're
it's a
just
vote.
voting.
Had to do it
Yep,
before
you
we
just
go
have to ask
discussions.
us if, who's in favor of the amendments, yay, and who's not in favor, no, so.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Those opposed? Julie, 3-0.
the amendment passes
The
now.
amendments. Now,
It's
draft
the-
3 with the
with you,
amendments.
yep.
Okay.
Which we've already,
We already motioned.
so we're just voting on
So
that.
now it's just a vote. So
Is there
all
any
those,
further
is
discussion?
there any
I
further
guess?
discussion?
No, ma'am.
All right. So all those in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? The draft 3 with the amendments, Julie, has passed 3-0. So this action item will now go to the full board,
Yes, it will.
Yep, in August.
for the full board to consider. So thank you, everybody, for your input. Thank you for bearing with us as we go through that. It is very important that we go step by step and that we are extremely clear on what this committee is going to be presenting. Moving forward, we are to our information items. The first item up is status update on school safety grant application to be presented by Mr. Cook.
Thank you. As we've discussed, it was announced last night at the board meeting and was mentioned in resolution draft 3. The district was awarded $518,000 from the school safety grants from the state. We're very appreciative of that. We had to work within the parameters of the school safety grant. So without getting into a lot of specific details about it, we are looking at efforts to harden the target, as people say. So making sure that our front entrances and all doorways are difficult to penetrate. We are looking to add banks of doors at some schools. Those will be visible changes, which would direct the flow of traffic into the building through the office. We are also looking at the addition of the Raptor Visitor Management System, which is a system where any visitor to the school is required to present either a driver's license or a state ID for a on-the-spot background check so that they can get into the building. And so those are the three big areas that we looked at, making sure that it's more difficult to get into our schools, making sure that we can direct the flow of traffic once people come into the school, and then being able to do a background check on all visitors to schools. So that is where we're at. The work has begun in various locations. We have until June 30th of 19 to spend this $518,000. So people will notice that the work is going to be ongoing over the course of this school year. And it'll be accomplished as soon as practical.
Sounds good. Thank you for those efforts, and to our governor and those above us to recognizing the need for this. The next information item is the update on the nonviolent crisis intervention training. Again, Dr. Cook.
Our school district, if you were to, I guess I should stop. There was a law that was passed about 8 years ago that talked about the use of seclusion and restraint in schools, and that law applies to all students. As a result of that law, many districts around the state use the Nonviolent Crisis Intervention Program to de-escalate students who are demonstrating aggressive and dysregulated behaviors on the front end. So you start to notice a student escalate, you know how to intervene verbally with that. But if a student were to ever become unsafe to themselves or others, we have staff that are trained in how to physically escort that student to a safe location so that they can become regulated, or even to help control them in the moment. This is a tactic that's used for a variety of students with a variety of needs. What I'd like to point out to you, though, is the number of staff that we have trained throughout the district. There is a table for you that shows the number of staff who have had the basic level training and the refresher training. You'll note on there right now that we have two schools that have no staff trained. Their staff are signed up during our August Summer Institute so that they have a group of staff at their school who are trained in these techniques.
All right. Yes, sir. Mr.
Yeah, I
Coleman.
have, every once in a while, when I'm not that busy working, I can shake free during the day. And I've actually witnessed some of the escalations occurring and then watching how we go about doing it. And actually, I was pretty impressed. I was at one of our schools, and, you know, it was a situation that was pretty sticky. It was like, I'm like, wow. Don't know if I really want to be here witnessing this, but actually it was a very good, it was handled really well from my perspective. And afterwards, I talked to the principal and said, yeah, you know, people were trained appropriately. And I asked us, was this how it should work for this particular kind of scenario? And it was. And you know, I was glad that I was able to witness that. And I thought the thinking and the process that went behind it seemed to be well executed, and I didn't really know what should have been done because I've never been trained, right, in it. But it was really well done, I thought. So, and that's only, I mean, it was happenstance that it happened right when I was there. So, and I don't know if I've ever really seen any other form of discipline other than expulsions, you know, at least live. So, I was impressed.
Very good. Is there anything else with that?
Nope.
Oh, wonderful. All right, our next topic was the update on the CPR first aid training. Dr. Cook.
As I begin this, I'd like to just give credit to our school nursing staff. We are very fortunate to have 3 excellent school nurses and 22 very diligent health room assistants that help us on a day-to-day basis. As we get into the CPR, AED, and first aid training, this is all coordinated by our school nurses. You can see on there that the CPR, AED, and first aid training is a 6.5-hour training that we provide 11 classes. That we provided 11 classes in the 17 and 18 school year. So we've provided many opportunities, almost one per month, for staff to be trained CPR, first aid, and AED. In those tools. On the second page of this update, you can see the dates for the CPR and AED training, the first aid training, when those were offered, and then you can see location by location the number of staff that we have trained at each school in these 3 areas. If you do look at the totals on the bottom, 276 staff that are CPR and AED certified, that's over 25% of our professional staff. Probably about 22% of our overall staff. Under first aid, 244 staff. That would put at about 20% of our district is trained in these areas.
Do you have the dates for the upcoming school year?
We do not have those. We are tentatively scheduling those. We're trying to work around. One of the issues that I shouldn't say the issue. The issue is, do you offer these during the school day, during people's work time, or do you offer them on the weekends, or do you do both? And we're finding that having a hybrid offering is best, but we need to be very strategic when we place those Saturday courses, and there's still some work being done there. If you are interested in participating in that as a Board of Education member, please reach out to us. There is a nominal charge that you would have to pay to participate in this.
I know you used to get emails. Last year, the board members got all the emails.
Yeah, and you'll continue to get those, yes.
I just have to go back memory-wise here for a little bit. It was 1970, 71, 72. I was Saratoga School, and I remember my mother volunteered to be a Red Cross first aid person in the school. And, that's when that all really got started, was recruiting, volunteers to help at the schools with first aid. And, you look at the complexities, we didn't even have the defibrillators available to, your general person. I mean, the technology was around, but not to your average person. And the complexities of administering medications and keeping track. And it's just not that there weren't complexities back in the 70s, there were, but it just seems to have really accelerated. And we should be very fortunate to have this many people trained in our schools. I think the number's actually pretty impressive.
Great. That conclude this item?
Is that one? Yep.
Great. The next item is the school nursing annual report.
So annually, the Board of Ed needs to be updated on the school nursing services report. Wendy Lang, Karen Steckel, Liza Davis, those are our 3 district RNs. They are the only nurses, people in nursing positions. Again, we have health room clerical people who work day-to-day with students, but these are our nurses. They put together this report for you that outlines the various activities over the school year. It gives you some statistics on what their workload is, the number of students, for instance, who have medical health conditions. We talked about this a little bit last night at the board as it pertained to field trips. But you can see that nearly 4,000 students in our district have a health or a medical condition. When you look at that, that is about 30% of our student population, which is why we've made those recommendations in and around field trips for certain grade levels. So you see and then also the scope, students who have what would be more common medical needs, such as asthma. You see the numbers there for allergies, but then we also have a number of students who we would categorize as medically fragile, kids who have feeding tubes, catheterization and such. Our nurses oversee the training, the support plans for all of these students. So they are very busy. You'll note on there that we have our Narcan. Narcan is added to this. We do have Narcan locations at all of our schools, all of our district buildings, so that we can intervene in the event of an opioid overdose. We do have our AEDs.
Have we had to use it?
We have not had to use the Narcan. We have not. I would say, though, that if we would have had the Narcan in place the year prior to this past school year, we would have had to use it at the Lindholm building at least once with a visitor to the building. So
I remember
it
that
is good.
incident.
It is good that we have it on hand. And so you get the overall school report. It does list our partnership with Dr. Ostendorf, who is our district medical advisor. She, if the nurses have a question, if we need a prescription for Narcan or for EpiPens, she is the one that provides that to us. And then you can see the total health room visits by school on the last page. Just gives you a little bit of scope as to how many students are being seen and at which locations. You can see, and this is pretty typical of certain types of schools. So you'll see a higher visit at our middle school level. There are certain things that happen when kids are in the middle school ages that require students to go to the health room a little bit more frequently. If you look at Summit View Elementary School as an example, Summit View has 600 students. So you would see at an elementary school more kids come to the health room. That would be a little bit, that's solely based off of numbers. You can also see some schools on here that have higher numbers, and you may question the number of the population. Some of that is also related to the free and reduced status at that school, where if students are not getting an adequate breakfast in the morning, they may be showing up into the health room because they don't feel well. We have supplies on hand. We have our social workers and our psychologists on hand that have some supplies to help get the students some food, in addition to our breakfast programs at those locations.
Do you have a total count? I'm looking at the graph, trying to do a quick count, but I didn't know if you had a total.
There,
Trying to
I
compare to
apologize
previous
here.
years.
I know that it is in the report here. Total number of health room visits for the school year was 92,984 across our district.
I remember when it was more in the $50,000 or 50,000 range, 50 to 60,000, and that was probably 7-8 years ago.
Again, some of this is indicative of where we're at with our free and reduced status. Our free and reduced status is higher now. I don't have a direct relationship, but our homeless numbers were a lot higher this year. And you do see a number of, there's a number of relationships between free and reduced status, the number of homeless students you have, and health room visits in some locations. Because often a child just is not feeling good when they're coming to school. And that's why we employ the health room assistants. That's why we employ our social workers and our psychologists and our counselors, so that there can be some non-teaching staff in the school who can help work with the kids and help get them regulated. And please understand that a health room visit is a health room visit is a health room visit. That's anything from I fell down on the playground and scratched my knee, to I have a headache, to where there could be something more significant like the flu. We had a big flu season this past year. We had a number of school locations. I believe one of our elementary schools had nearly a 25% absenteeism, 20% absenteeism for 1 or 2 days. That is a lot of health room visits in a short period of time. So those add up pretty quickly. And when you have 13,000 kids in your district, there's a multiplier there.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to the next item, which is the school safety report.
Yeah, in front of you, what we wanted to try to do with, we've been having the facilities conversation now for a couple of years, and as part of the resolution that was passed last night for the Barrow we've done a lot of work within that scope around school safety. We applied for and we were awarded the safety grant. The safety grant was designated solely for safety. We applied for and we're waiting the outcome of the state mental health grant. And so what we tried to do is kind of summarize for you all of our efforts over the past number of years. And so the first part of this report to you talks about our current efforts around mental health, trauma-informed care, and threat assessment. When I arrived in Waukesha, we had 11 school psychologists that were working for us. We had 17 school counselors that were working for us, and we had 10 social workers. Now we have 18 psychologists working for us, 11 social workers, and 19 school counselors across our levels. So we have gone from the mental health piece. We have increased our staffing so that we can meet the social and emotional needs of students. With that, then, we have begun over the last year looking at what is the social and emotional curriculum that is in place so that we can begin to do some of the preventative work, and you'll see that in here. But then also, you'll see information in here on the PATH program, and for the members of the board, of this committee who have also sat on the Teaching and Learning Committee, you have seen the Pathways to Healing updates that Luke Pinion has provided and others, where we're providing mental health services to students in a number of our locations. It's a billable format where the school location is being used to provide mental health services to kids. Along with that, we have the trauma-informed care component of the school safety grant. So in order to get all of your grant dollars, you need to make sure that all of your professional staff in your district receives at least 3 hours of professional development in the area of trauma-informed care. Currently, we have approximately 200 employees who have had that training, either in a full day or a half day or a multiple day session. We've really focused on our student services staff in this to kind of, facilitate that message in their schools. But we've got a number of school locations that have gone pretty heavy in it, where almost the entire staff at one point or another had the trauma-informed care training. So over the course of the year, we're going to be doing more professional development with staff to make sure that, one, we can meet the requirements of the grant, but two, that we have kind of a level playing field of base knowledge so that we can begin to build on that on all of our staff. That really helps us with those threat assessment pieces so the teachers know what cues to look for, so that our student services staff and our administration know how to more properly evaluate what could be threatening behavior. So that's a lot of the work that we've done up to this point around mental health, trauma, and such. We have had a number of efforts around school safety. That's the next thing that's outlined in here. Nearly 4 years ago, we began our work on creating our crisis response and emergency operation manual. The district piece that we worked with Waukesha County Law Enforcement, Health and Human Services, Waukesha Fire, Waukesha Police. It was really a collaborative effort. We even had some of our parochial schools involved in the conversation so that they had those resources. That is a document and a process and that has been updated annually. We've heard people talk about drills. September, we use that as school safety month, so we run all of our drills over the course of September. We have looked at and maybe bringing recommendations forward to increase the frequency of lockdown drills. When you look at the research and you look at the statistics around the number of students who have died in a fire in a school in the last 60 years-ish, it's 0. They attribute that to better building materials. Zero. No students in the state of Wisconsin have died, maybe even the country, in a school fire in the last 60 years.
It works?
The drills work. There was a situation at one of our elementary schools where the fire marshal, where one of our buildings and grounds guys showed up and just asked the principal if they had conducted their monthly fire drill yet. Principal said no, it was the lunch hour. The principal pulled the fire alarm and said, let's see what happens now. Every single student in the school went to their designated location and lined up. Every single teacher ran around the school looking for their students. So the kids were very, very prepared for what to do in the sense of a fire drill. We are having some conversations around what happens when the fire alarm is pulled. We're also looking at what does it mean to have those pull stations within the school hallways. Obviously, with those threats that we have heard about and which our community have brought forward to us, we're really looking within the scope of this facilities work and the referendum that we'll be proceeding towards, making sure that we do those appropriate upgrades to our schools so that it is not easy for somebody to come in, pull a handle, and then have the students enter into the hallway. So we are making a number of steps there. You can see in the chart the current projects around school safety, and a lot of this has to deal with the school safety grant. These are the school safety grant projects, from the Raptor system to what we're doing on the doors and the entrance areas, to the building segmentation that we've talked about, to the trauma-informed care, professional development that we're providing. And then also, Steve Schloman has done a lot of work around what do our clocks and our PA systems look like. And so utilizing the technology infrastructure that we have in the events that there are emergencies. So we have done a lot of work in this. These are not new conversations for us. It's really what can we do within the scope of budgets, and then, you know, with what was discussed last night and passed last night. The last piece on here, we are looking at the addition of school resource officers. We then placed 2 additional resource officers at our middle school. Darren and I are having meetings with the police department to talk about what that looks like and what the total amount would be. The number on there you see, $200,000, would be on the absolute highest end for this. We are working with within the scope of a shared contract where we're not covering the full cost, but it would not exceed this amount. Then the other topics, the secure entryways at all of our schools, office relocations at middle and high school locations. And then you see on there under the timeline, as soon as practical, pending the approval of a funding plan. A lot of the work that we're going to be doing going forward, as far as getting in front of community groups, PTOs, PTAs, other organizations, to share the information that we have around our facilities, to answer the questions that we can answer of the community, as we begin this work for a November election. So you see the full scope of what we have done, what our history is, how we're dealing with mental health and trauma, and then some of our current projects, and then what we hope to accomplish in the future if the community supports that. There was some conversation tonight brought on anti-bullying and social and emotional curriculum. Our state mental health grant that we applied for is very heavy at getting a common program in place, 4K through 5th grade across our entire system. And that is step 1 of that grant. Our future work would then be to expand that grades 6-12. So this is kind of the state of the state on our school safety work right now.
Well, thank you for helping direct that and making sure that everything is followed through. All right, folks, we are getting towards the end here. Our next item is a discussion item, and this is the outline of the former safety committee topics. Dr. Cook?
Yeah, we would have provided you a long list of topics that were discussed at the former school safety committee. However, we felt it to be a good time for us to sit down and have some conversations with our insurance company, with our buildings and grounds. And so our next steps around coming up with topics that would need to be on our agenda, and then topics that would be covered just administratively, perhaps with updates provided to this committee, that is all in process. We did talk last month about coming to you with an updated calendar and such, and I just wanted to update you that a lot of this work is still in process when you're talking about coordinating. Glenn Norder, as everybody knows, is in the time of year where he's up to his eyeballs in projects, and so we have to respect his workload right now. And so you'll see more information on this in the future.
I got to put a hard hat on and go to North the other day and see how that was coming along with the change at the cafeteria. I'd encourage you to do so if you have time. It was a lot of progress being made.
Great. Okay, we are at the last order of business, which would be other business. So that being said, are there any recommendations for further committee meetings or other items as needed? Yes, sir.
And I already see Joe has kind of put that in to process a little bit with the report he gave, but As we move forward with the referendum, I think it's really important to have this committee really focus on those safety and security items. You know, I think F&F should be maybe looking at the maintenance of the buildings, but as we educate and really what the next step is to communicate and to educate our constituents as to what the facts are so that they can make an informed decision when they go to vote. And that's part of this committee's job, I view, since 26% of those monies would be designated towards safety and security. So I saw you wiggle some of that into the report, but we might want to get a little bit more specific on some of those things if we possibly can.
Very good. Got all that?
Got it.
All right. Well, that then, gentlemen, brings us to the end of our agenda. Thank you so much for bearing with us as we hash through everything and making sure that everything's clear and proper. Thanks very much. We are adjourned.